what makes you so unique. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Monday. I am Nicole Everett, the host of Conversations with Nicole, a talk show based here in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Man Up Monday. Conversation with the men, the brethren, but the ladies can listen and chime in as well. So we do these talks just to engage with the community. I enjoy having conversations with folks. So here we are. But before we get started, in terms of me introducing my guests and talking about our topic, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? If you will, in the comments, put your city and state, so that we can give you a shout out. It is a brisk evening here in Tallahassee. Fall is in the air, but it's all good. We're about a week and a half away from Thanksgiving. I can't even believe that is about to happen. And we are embarking upon 2022 very, very shortly. So, all right. So I see you, Cindy Riera from Miami, Florida. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that. We have a very interesting discussion this evening for you. My very special guest is Mr. Elonza Morris III. He is no stranger to Man Up Monday because he has been on here before. So we are super excited to have him. So I'm going to read you a little bit about him. He is an author. He is a counselor. He and his wife have a Christian and faith-based counseling company called M3 Marriage and Family Counseling. And he holds degrees in, he has a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology, Christian Counseling, and a Master's of Art in Pastoral Counseling, Marriage and Family. And he has various certifications, from being a certified suicide and crisis prevention and intervention counselor and an assessment facilitator and prepare and enrich facilitator certification. And his specialties are premarital counseling, marriage, relationship, anxiety, PTSD, rejection, intergenerational trauma, which is what we will be talking about tonight, family conflict, and strengthening and crisis and suicide prevention and intervention. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Elonza Morris III. Yay!
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome, Elonza.
I'm glad to be here again.
Glad to have you. So I see a few more folks on the line. So let me just quickly give a shout out to Adner right here in Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you for tuning in. And my single mingles buddy, Mr. Nick Raines, who is also a counselor. And I believe marriage and dating and family are his specialties as well. So thanks for being Nick. So Elonza, for the folks who don't know you, tell them, who are you? Who is Elonza Morris III?
So I am first and foremost a servant of God. I am a husband, and I'm the father of 6 kids. I have 4 boys and 2 girls. I'm like Nicole said, I'm a counselor. I've been in private practice for 7 years now, but I've been counseling over close to 19 years of counseling services or counseling experience. I am a 3-time published author, and I'll be releasing my 4th book this month. My latest book, though, Conquering Life's Crucial Moments, is a 30-day devotional guide that deals with emotional, mental, and spiritual healing. So I'm excited about that book being released this year. And so I'm just a lover of life and a lover of people, serving people, and helping them through.
Awesome. 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 So the third book, tell me about that one again.
Third book. This is my third book, Conquering Life's Crucial Moments.
Hmm.
It's a 30-day devotional guide. You get to actually write in this book. I deal with 30 different issues over the course of 30 days. Issues spanning from establishing boundaries, how to move forward, getting patience, how to heal. I talk about how healing is habitual based upon our habits. I deal with understanding trials and tribulations. I deal with the dangers of insecurities. I talk about when silence is deadly, what that looks like, and just a plethora of issues that we deal with every day and how to conquer those issues in the moment. And so this is just a collection of inspiration and encouragement and teachings that you can engage in. And I have a section in here called Go Deeper, where there are questions you answer, and you can journal those questions right here in the book. This is not a substitute for counseling, but it's an in between, a go between, to add to your self-care routine regimen. So yeah,
Okay. And tell me the name again one more time.
it's called Conquering Life's Crucial Moments, a 30-day devotional guide to emotional, mental, and spiritual healing.
Hmm. Wow. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Very good. Well, thank you for that. I see a few more folks, so I definitely want to acknowledge them. Hi, Roslyn. And greetings, Princess. Princess has been on the last few lives. I appreciate your input and your presence. And hey there, Ozzy. Ozzy's in Virginia Beach. And Ozzy also does counseling as well. So welcome, Ozzy. All right. So that's that this book sounds really interesting, and I like the fact that you can journal in it, because a lot of times
Mhm,
we may be going through something or may have some thoughts and some feelings.
mhm.
It's good to be able to write those down, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That I, you know, journaling is part of the. It should be part of your healing journey. Um, Being able to write down your thoughts and being able to see your thoughts on paper, it helps you process what you're dealing with. And so that's
Hmm.
why any counselor, any therapist will recommend keeping a journal. It also gives you direction, lets you know where you are and where you're headed and where you're coming from. So that's why 90% of my books, I think, yeah, all the books that I've written has a section in it where you can write, you can journal.
Okay, good
Yeah.
deal. So for our folks out here, this is an interactive live. Many of you already know that, but we're going to dive in. And, this is Man Up Monday. So the focus in some regard is men, but, it's going to be just kind of an open conversation. So let's
Mhm,
dive in. So, intergenerational trauma. You said that
mhm.
that's one of the things that you really enjoy talking about. I got several folks that reached out to me and were like, "Ooh, this should be good," or, "I can't wait to tune in." So let's do it. Let's talk about it. What is intergenerational trauma?
So from a definition standpoint, it is it's a concept that was developed to explain years of trauma from a generational standpoint in families. So
Mhm.
dealing with family systems, and this is key to the family. Is also key to men because men are by design or by God's design head of the families, and so it's a concept that attempts to explain and address trauma passed on through each generation. And so that's just a basic definition of it. It's also called transgenerational trauma or trauma transformed or transferred. onto each generation, unresolved issues in the family.
Okay. So my question is the school of thought that intergenerational trauma is nature or nurture or a combination of the two? And let me just provide a point of clarity for those who may be, listening. When I say nature or nurture, when I say nature, I'm talking about, is it biological from the standpoint of it being passed down genetically, or
Mhm.
nurture, which is more environmental or learned behavior? So,
Okay.
Alonzo.
Well, there is research that points to, I guess, the study of epigenetics, where it is when they looked at studied the children of Holocaust survivors, looked at their blood. It was a small study, but they also did it in descendants of slaves as well during slavery, where certain issues or certain mental issues through trauma, through the experience of the Holocaust, was passed down through the descendants that were directly impacted by the trauma. And so you see things like depression, you see things like anxiety that runs in the family. You see things like explosive behaviors that run in the family. You see things like abuse and molestation that's a history in the family. And all of these things are from. And I'm not a geneticist, but you can Google it. You can see the studies on genetics and trauma passed down through genetics. But just for the sake of conversation, there is a nature or biological or genetic component to trauma. And then there's the nurture side of it, our environment, our culture, certain behaviors that are passed down from generation to generation, certain beliefs of how to cope with trauma, especially in the I can speak on the African American community,
Mm-hmm.
how we, deal with trauma. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about the abuse or the molestation that everybody in the family knows about. We don't talk about the alcoholism. We don't talk about the drug abuse. We don't talk about the divorce. We don't talk about why these things happen. In our culture, we just learn to put a band-aid on it and keep on going. And so that's why, and I was telling you this earlier, that's why I believe that if you heal the family, you'll heal the community. So these issues that are passed down, these mindset, these ideals that are taught from our grandparents, are how we deal with things. Just and especially if you look at the church, for example, just pray about it. Just take it to the Lord in prayer or stay prayed up, but no solutions. No strategies, no tools. And I believe in prayer. I'm a preacher. I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring over 10 years. And so I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that faith, that God is real. My faith is in God, but I believe that works are needed as well. And so we just tell people, weeping may endure for a night, but joy come in the morning, and just expect it to be okay, like it went away. And so that's what the issue with intergenerational trauma is all about, is how we deal with trauma and how we have been teaching ourselves from generation to generation as to how to deal with trauma, especially in this country. With slavery, just move on from it or forget about it. So those things are evident in our community, and a lot of anger and a lot of these things are being passed down from fathers to sons, mothers to daughters. If I could use this for example, I was at a school a couple of months ago, and I was sitting there, and the mother was dealing with her son, and the son was crying, and the mother said to the son, "Don't let nobody see you crying. Don't let nobody see you cry. Men don't cry. Boys don't cry."
Mm-hmm.
That is trauma. That is a teaching from trauma, birthed out of trauma. Because it's okay for us to express anger, but it's not okay for us to express sadness.
Mhm.
So that's why this is an issue.
So you have said quite a bit, and folks are agreeing and chiming in. And so you mentioned especially uh, being in this country, Black folks, African Americans being in this country. So that was actually going to be my next question,
Mhm.
because the things that you mentioned outside of our location seem to be more culturally based, from the
Mhm.
standpoint of maybe some things that we experience within the African American family. However, I believe that slavery, I believe that racism, bias, prejudice, discrimination are also major contributing factors.
Colorism.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
Okay. So talk about that some.
Well, so colorism is light-skinned slave versus black-skinned slave, or light-skinned versus dark-skinned, or
Mhm.
we see that in our community a lot. And it was something that was used to turn us against one another during slavery. It was a method. It was a tool. Um, uh, those terms refer to house slaves and field slave.
Mhm.
Um, and that mentality, that mindset has carried on through each family, throughout generations, from a genetic perspective and from a mental or psychological perspective. A lot of our behaviors, a lot of us, we don't, and I'm not saying to anybody individual, but just in general, we hate people that don't look like us. That came from somewhere. We judge by the color of our skin in our community, not just white against a black, but in our community we judge against one another's skin.
Mhm.
And if their skin color is not like ours, we have emotional response against them. We hate, or we have bitterness or jealousy, and a lot of these issues, bitterness, jealousy, a lot of these issues, they show up physically, in disease.
Mhm.
If you do the research, but I'll get into that some other time.
That's fine. That's fine. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because as you stated, that colorism piece, has been an issue, within the Black community, and continues to be an issue, and that I also
Mhm.
agree is part of that intergenerational trauma that
Yeah.
folks experience within families and communities. So, good point.
Yeah.
So, you've talked about a number of issues that help to perpetuate that intergenerational trauma. So, how do we begin to address that? One, I guess, in terms of a recognition or an awareness, because maybe you know you, you are experiencing these traumatic experiences, but don't really have a name for it, or don't really
Mhm.
know, what to call it. And a lot of times these things happen in our childhood, right? There's
Mhm.
something
Yeah.
called adverse childhood experiences, right?
Mhm.
There's a ACEs test that can be taken to kind of, determine some things. But I think the ACEs test needs to be revamped to uh, include culture, right?
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
different cultural variations, I believe. But anyway, that's just my own thoughts about it. But let's talk about, how do you begin to kind of unpack this, and kind of deal with, you know, any trauma within your family, either biological family or chosen family. And what are some of the steps or first things that you should do?
Um, whenever I'm in a counseling session, dealing with clients that have issues, deeply rooted mental issues, emotional issues. One of the first steps is identifying the root. Uh, that's in a counseling setting. Um, Outside the counseling setting, the first steps is acknowledgement or recognizing or accepting that something is wrong, um, and then uh, doing the research to see, where can I go from here. So then that's when an individual says, I'll go see a therapist or I'll see a counselor. um, the individual that is at its last, because usually when someone comes to a counselor, they've exhausted all resource. They're at a point of desperation, right? um, my goal is to try to get it, to not let it get to that point, but knowing that something is wrong, and then going to seek help for what is wrong. And so I spent a lot of my time just speaking about various issues: anxiety, trauma, depression, bitterness, a lot of these issues, just so people can wake up and then not let it get to a boiling point. So, um, identification of where this comes from. And I usually, like you said, it stems from childhood, all the way up. The family, what families can do is have open, honest, and loving dialogue. Um, coming to the table, and really talking about that. What I mean by this, I talk to my mom a lot, and my mom was on here tonight. I talk to my mom a lot, and um, my mom has been on a journey of discovering things within herself, uh, as a woman, and then as a mother to myself and my siblings, as to how she raised us, and identifying problems and traits and patterns, that stem from her childhood and her relationship with her mother, and the lack of her father being there. Things like that. And it takes a lot for a parent to come to a child, and say, I was wrong, but it needs to happen.
Mhm.
That's how we get through this thing. Outside of a therapeutic or a clinical setting, it's just families coming to the table to talk about the issues that we sweep under the rug. Talk about have those uncomfortable conversations, in a loving manner. We don't know how each one of us will respond, but making that first step to say, listen, this is what I've noticed. This is what I've seen, in my life. Are you having the same issues? I remember Uncle such and such used to do, and just getting the dialogue going, and then going to therapy or counseling.
So, thank you for that. I actually was having a conversation tonight with two friends of mine, both who did not have their fathers present in their lives.
Hmm.
And to hear them talk about it was almost as if it was normalized that their father wasn't present, and it was okay.
Hmm.
Because maybe they felt like they had some surrogates, or that their mother did, a pretty decent job, and it just is what it is. And so I didn't really need him. And
Hmm.
so I was encouraging them to still try to have a relationship with their father, to the extent that they could. Sometimes it's a challenge because of whatever issues that he may have not dealt with as relates to their mother, or even his own childhood, adverse childhood experiences, or intergenerational trauma that he may be experiencing. But don't allow that to hinder you. And I said, you never know what you may need or what you may receive from that relationship.
Hmm.
And this person is a part of you, and there's some things about them that you don't realize that there's a connection there, but there is, you know? So I'm glad you spoke to that because we can normalize some things that are really not normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
We've normalized being silent.
Mm-hmm.
We equate silence when there's something wrong with us. We equate that as strength.
Mm-hmm.
Not talking about it, not telling anybody that I got a problem, that I'm going through something, not asking for help. We have identified that is a strong woman or that is a strong man, but that person is silently dying
Mm-hmm.
in their silence.
Right.
And that's, I'm not trying to plug my book, but I talk about that in the book, when silence becomes deadly. you know
Mm-hmm.
you stay quiet about something long enough and don't deal with the issue, it's going to cause you to explode.
Yeah.
um,
Killing
and then
yourself.
just killing yourself. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's heart attacks, strokes, aneurysms,
Yes.
uh, all of those things originated from an emotional and mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the physical consequences of years and years of stress, years and years of worry, years and years of fear. Um, to make the connection of trauma being genetically or DNA, look at how our biological makeup is. So when we fear, there's a fight or flight response, or flight or
Mm-hmm.
flight response. That's our body's natural defense against stress, right? Against fear. Um, what happens when the the fight or flight response doesn't shut off? And what that looks like is, you have the hypothalamus that controls cortisol secretion in the body. Cortisol is released to deal with the stress. It's God's way of saying this is how your body is going to deal with stress. But when fear stays longer than it's supposed to, when anxiety stays longer than it's supposed to, when anger and bitterness stays longer than it's supposed to, cortisol never stops releasing into the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Weight gain, abdominal issues, digestive issues, weakened immune system,
Mm-hmm.
cardiovascular issues, circulatory issues. Your body has been warning you before the heart attack, warning you before the stroke, warning you. That tiredness and that frustrated feeling, you need to do something about it,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a warning. That is your body saying something is wrong. And if you don't do anything, then the physical manifestation of that emotional issue, that mental issue, is going to attack you. And a lot of this stuff can be solved just by connecting with our Father, just by connecting with our mother, just by healing that issue. Every male, every son needs their father. I don't care what happened in the relationship. Every daughter needs their mother. I don't care what happens in the relationship. We we have an innate desire built in us from birth to be relational, to have relationships, especially with our fathers. None of us knows, unless we were an orphan, none of us knows what it's like to be an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an orphan longs for physical touch, physical intimacy with someone that they're biologically connected to. Now, there are substitutes, when adoption takes place, things like that, but it would never fill the void of that biological presence from the person that we came through, our seed father, and the mother that nurtured us while we were in her womb. We can't replace that in this earth. And so I've had issues with my father. Just more recently, speaking with my father a few weeks ago, just learning, just hearing him talk about how he felt as a man, as a father, to us, his children, feeling like he was an inadequate father, feeling like just hearing the insecurities in his voice, as I'm talking to him with the issues that were going on, it resonated something in me when I was in my first marriage that ended in divorce.
Wow.
I was able to make a connection. I wouldn't have not been able to do that had I not had the tough, uncomfortable conversations with my dad.
Wow.
Growing up with him not being there, not understanding then why he wasn't there, not understanding the dynamics of his relationship with my mom, and not them being quiet about it. It caused me to end up in divorce.
Wow.
Because of the silence about what you guys went through in your marriage, what you guys went through as young parents. There's no blueprint, but you guys need to talk. You need to speak up. We need, our parents and us who are parents need to have these conversations. We feel like if we don't talk to our children about it, then we're helping them, we're sparing them from the pain that we went through, and that is ignorance.
Yes.
That's ignorance. We got to have these conversations. It's needed.
Okay. No, you are absolutely correct. We do have a question from Chastity. She wants to know, what do you do when you are the person in your family that is trying to break that generational trauma? Spiritually, it's termed you are the bloodline breaker. So what would you suggest to the person that's trying to help break that?
I would say to operate within your means and operate within boundaries. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times we know we're called to break chains. We know that we're called to break curses in our family bloodline. Boundaries tells me which curses that's on me to break, because I may be trying to pursue an issue within my family that God never wanted me to take on. And so now I'm burnt out. Now I want to give up. Now I don't want to deal with nothing within my family. Now I want to just separate myself. A lot of our burnout is because the gift and the calling on us to be generous, to be a curse breaker, to do these things, we're not seeking him for which curses and which person to give money to, or give advice to, or help out in this situation. And then when it's not returned to us, we're broken. And so to prevent you from burning out, anyone that's called to break curses, whether it be financial curses, health curses, no matter which curse that lies in your bloodline, we need to seek God, seek Holy Spirit on which one am I supposed to deal with? Because if you don't do that, then you'll be trying to take on all of them, and you'll find yourself by yourself trying to do that. Because seeking God on which ones, he'll tell you who to partner with in your family. He'll tell you that your cousin was dealing with the same thing and she wants to talk about it and get the family together and deal with this. And you'll see which ones you guys are supposed to deal with, instead of just, taking on these things on your own. That would be my advice. Boundaries, putting boundaries in place, and just seeking Holy Spirit, seeking God on what am I supposed to be to my family?
Okay. Again, thank you for that. So what I'm hearing is, of course, one is having these tough conversations, being honest, being open. Now, when you're in the midst of these tough conversations, it can get emotional. It can be judgmental, maybe. It can even become violent. So,
Mhm.
what would you suggest to the person that's really trying to, or persons that are trying to tap into that? I mean, I know you said kind of operate within your means,
Mhm.
but you know, any kind of other guidance that you might be able to give? You mentioned boundaries as well. The
Mhm.
other thing that I would also imagine would be packing your patience too, because
Mhm.
again, it could be quite volatile, quite emotional when trying to, have these talks.
Yeah. So I would say so there so there's directional trauma and indirectional trauma. So right, so that means that there's an issue between you and one other person, or you and a few other people that you can go to and have these conversations with. And then there are issues that don't involve you, but it's in your family, and you want to get the ball rolling. You want to get conversation started. The key is finding out who in my family that I can have these conversations with. That's the number one key. Um, and then when and it's also about knowing your enemy. And
Mm,
by not saying that your family member is the enemy, but the spirit that's operating in that family member,
mm,
knowing your enemy, knowing that we can't in this kind of setting, we cannot have this kind of conversation with this person. When that happens, then a trained professional needs to be brought in. Counselor, therapist needs to be brought in to facilitate and to mediate, and to be the in between that particular setting. But if you know that there is an issue that you can partner with someone in the family, and knowing that I can have these conversations with this person or with these people, then you go forward. But knowing your enemy keeps you from getting into the conflict, getting into the violence, getting into the fight, getting into the stuff that you don't want to create. Because at the end of the day, these are uncomfortable conversations.
mhm.
These are uncomfortable conversations. And so you want to make it an environment of safety, an environment of peace, as best as you can. So knowing your enemy and knowing who you can have these conversations with is best. And there are times where you can't talk to anyone in your family about it. Someone has passed away. Um, and so then therefore, if that individual who has caused you trauma has passed away, you can't reconcile with them because they are no longer here. Then that's when you definitely turn a a counselor.
Yeah.
Definitely, I was just I see Ozzy say emotional intelligence. Listen, I'm working on a curriculum for emotional intelligence for middle school and high school students, and it's interesting because it helps you be able to gauge your response to external stressors. I tell people all the time, you can't stop someone from opposing you or objecting you or coming against you or anything in this life. External stressors are always going to be there, but what you can control is how you respond to those things, and
Mhm.
just learning how to effectively respond in a healthy way. So I'm glad he said that. Yeah.
Yes. Also, Ozzy also said, I had to take a step back and stay quiet and meditate, then go out and work. A routine must be set up when dealing with clients in your self care. Because again, Ozzy is also a counselor.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Man, that's a great point for anybody, but especially those who are charged with helping, counselors, lay counselor, therapists, and even those that are called to be curse breakers. Outside of boundaries and knowing your enemy and who you're dealing with, the first thing is dealing with self. Making sure my emotional health is intact, making sure my mental health is intact, making sure my spiritual health is intact. If I'm trying to break chains and finances, making sure that I'm addressing my finances and so on and so forth. We it starts with us first and foremost. The man in the mirror, dealing with that person in the mirror, and we don't. I don't know why we don't like self care. This term, it's becoming popular now, but it has always been there. We are people who don't like to rest, who don't like to relax, who don't like to reset and have restoration moments, um, with meditation moments, and it has to be in our life. It has to be a part of our life.
Now I'm going to interrupt you there. Is it that we don't like it, or we've had to, as a result of being enslaved Africans here in America, had to work
Mhm.
sun up to sundown, and some of that has continued to
Trauma.
perpetuate itself in our community, in our culture? Maybe we've had to, have 2 and 3 jobs just to make
Mhm.
ends meet because we weren't given certain opportunities, or certain opportunities weren't afforded to us, right? So
That's part of yeah.
I don't know if it's that we don't necessarily like it, but if
Mhm.
generationally that's passed down, that we have to be twice as good and work twice as hard, then we not talking about resting. We gotta work because we trying to come up, right?
And I agree to that. But then I've seen the individual who who really we like. Okay, so then we were forced to be this way, right? We were forced to take on these jobs and do things this way. But the lack of education surrounding how that impacted our mental health and our physical health was something that wasn't given to us. So
Mm,
when we pass down these work habits to our children, we can't fail to educate them on how this is going to impact me physically and mentally, but also relationally.
mhm,
Because there were times where I didn't see my mom. My sister was there,
mhm.
you know. My mom worked a lot, and she did the best she could with what she was given. And we're so when we're passing down these, you got to work hard, you have to have good work ethic, but what does that look like in today's society? What does that look like for me? They use the term working like a Jamaican, having all these jobs, but even though that was the way of life, that doesn't mean that it was the most effective way of life,
Mhm.
um, because a lot of them died early. Premature death is real.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of them, because they had that mindset and that ideal, that way of thinking, they didn't last long. And you may feel like you're trapped and that's all you can do, but it was something, a way of thinking that needed to be done away with, or put in proper context.
Yes.
So
Yeah, put in proper context, like Ozzy said, there has to be a balance and it must be intentional.
hmm
So, I think that's something that we have to um, tell our children, show our children, and definitely keep in mind. So it's definitely a mindset shift, right?
yeah.
It's
hmm
definitely a mindset shift, and that it again. There's some intentionality behind that, for
yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure. All right,
Healing is intentional.
yeah,
Many times we ask to be healed. No, Lord, heal my body, Lord, do.
hmm
But what we fail to realize is that healing is is it's an intentional act. God already did it. Healing is already made available for all of us. So we're asking him for something that he's already given. The question now is, God, how do I tap into the healing? Now it's based upon it's based on my habits, right? And the reason why I say healing is habitual, based upon our habits. Whenever Jesus healed someone in the Bible, he made a statement at the end. He said, "Now go and sin no more unless something greater comes upon you." That connects what I'm doing in my life to my physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, wherever area of healing that I need. That means that I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. And if I keep doing this, something greater is going to come upon my health. But we're praying and saying, God, heal my body, heal my body. And you know, the healing takes place, and then we find ourselves sick again. We find ourselves broke again. We find ourselves back in that cycle. It's letting us know, especially in the area of trauma, it's letting us know that the only way to break the cycle is to develop healthy habits. It's develop healthy habits. My healing, I maintain my healing that I just received, even if I went to the doctor and got surgery, or they took the tumor out, or if I don't develop healthy eating habits, exercise, mental care, whatever I had, that's coming back, and then some.
Right.
You know, so these things are intentional. They have to be intentional. Forgiveness is intentional. All of it, everything that pertains to our mental health, our emotional health, our healing in general, it has to be intentional, and it's based upon the habits that you're creating or the bad habits that you have. You know.
Now, you mentioned forgiveness. So, what role does forgiveness play in dealing and healing from intergenerational trauma?
So, forgiveness is part of the healing process. Unforgiveness, it keeps the traumatic moment, the traumatic event, it keeps it playing in your mind. It keeps it playing in your heart. Mention of the person's name, a familiar place that is associated with the event that took place, going back to the scene of a traumatic accident, going back to the scene of being molested, going back to the house where you were raped, going back to or hearing a sound or smelling a fragrance. Unforgiveness, a song, yeah, exactly. Unforgiveness plays the event in your mind, because we think forgiveness means I gotta still be friends with that person, or I still gotta be in a good relationship. That's not what forgiveness is. And I teach this. This is what forgiveness is. Whenever, you know, every year during election time, a sitting president, when they're leaving, they pardon a prisoner. They pardon somebody, right? That doesn't mean that person is not guilty of whatever it is they did. They're guilty of it, but the pardon means that we're no longer counting it against you.
Right.
And that's what forgiveness is. I know what you did, and what you did to me is real. The traumatic event that I'm experiencing, it's real. I would not take that away from you. But I have to let this go for me. I can't count this against you anymore. Because as long as I count this against you, every time I see you, every time I see your name, every time I smell something that reminds me of you, every time I remember what it was like, what happened, even if I'm in a new relationship, a new marriage, even if I'm on a new job, what they did to me on the old job, I'm going to associate it with this new career, this new job. I can't enjoy the new because I'm constantly living in the old, because I'm still counting this against you. Forgiveness is from the Bible. It's a God principle. For God was in the world, reconciling the world back to himself, not counting, or the Bible says, not imputing their sins against them by letting Jesus die on the cross. And then he gave us the ministry of reconciliation, the task, the service of constantly of trying to reconcile relationship. Not every relationship will be able to reconcile, but that's why forgiveness is on you. Jesus says, when you pray, remember to forgive your brother or your sister if you want your father to forgive you. So forgiveness is at the very center, the very core, the very foundation, the very one of the first things you need to do in order to heal and move forward. Many of us not healing physically because we're still holding on to it. If you do the research, a lot bitterness, the emotional state of being bitter towards somebody, it shows up in a lot of cancers.
Mm.
So when you see breast cancer, so I've studied the research of Dr. Henry Wright. He has a book called A More Excellent Way to Be in Health, and when he talks about spiritual root causes to diseases, and he looks at disease from a natural perspective, biological perspective. Because he's connected with many medical doctors, but he also looks at it from a spiritual perspective. So when the Bible says laughter or happiness is like good medicine, but a poor spirit dries the bones, it's saying that your mental health, your emotional disposition is connected to your immune system, because dry bones is bone marrow. 75% of our immune system is in our marrow. And if the bone marrow is drying up, that means our immune system is compromised. And so when you see these spiritually rooted diseases like anxiety, like fear, like stress, like bitterness, when you see breast cancer, right, in women, there is a root cause of bitterness between mother-daughter relationships, or sister relationship, the women in the family, or the in-laws, the women in-laws. It shows up in breast. Why? Because the breast is used to nurture the baby. When there is bitterness in that relationship, it attacks the breast, the nurturing part, because that relationship is broken. And so a lot of these issues that we're dealing with physically has a spiritual root cause. It has a rooted in our emotional state, rooted in our mental state, and that's why we're not healing, because we haven't identified or made the connection. We read scripture and don't take it literally, a lot of that stuff literally, I bet a lot of people read that scripture in Proverbs, that dries the bone, and just was like, oh, it's just a metaphor. No, you look at osteoporosis, you look at digestive issues, any disease that needs calcium, that needs the bones to be healthy. You'll find somebody that was anxious, that was worried.
Wow.
You'll find somebody with depression. You'll find somebody sad, deep sadness. I can go on with those.
Okay, that is quite fascinating, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
I use a lot of this information in my practice. Because I had to use it on myself. I had to figure out why I was sick. So that I had to break that thing down and see why I was having headaches, and why I was having digestive issues, and why this was happening, and and that's what I discovered. I had a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety. I was able to pinpoint when anxiety entered into my life. Asthma is transferred from father to son. Asthma has a root cause of fear and anxiety. So a lot of these things, when an infant, when a baby comes into this world, that infant is going through a traumatic experience within itself, and just to come out, there are many spirits that are hovering around in that delivery room, ready to attach itself, and 90% of those spirits are generational, or family oriented. When they come in,
Wow.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
interesting. Very interesting. So Ozzy is also mentioning being low on vitamin D doesn't help. The darker the skin, the higher the dosage necessary. So,
yeah.
you know, again, we're talking intentionality, right? Because there are a number of things that can be done to help combat some of these things that we are contending
Hmm.
with, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to want to be healed.
Yes.
You have to want to be free. But even in the desire, your desire has to move you to getting help.
Move you to action, right?
Yeah, it has to. That's the intentionality part about it.
Mm-hmm.
If I can say this, if you look at John chapter 5, the man at the pool of Bethesda was there for 38 years.
Mm.
The Bible says that there was a pool, and the angel comes down at a certain time of day, stirs of the pool, and
Right.
whoever gets in the pool gets healed.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
man sat right there at the pool for 38 years and
Yeah.
didn't
But
get healed.
didn't have anybody to put them in the pool.
And he had excuse after excuse,
Right.
defeated mindset after defeated mindset. All Jesus asked him is, "Do you want to be? Do you
Right.
want to be made whole?" And if you look at the translation of that text, he says, "Do you believe you can be whole?"
Mm-hmm.
He dealt with his mind.
Yeah.
Like, do you believe this can happen? If you can believe, then that's why he just said, "Take up your mat and go." And
Mm-hmm.
he was healed from that point forward
Yeah.
because he dealt with his mind.
But look how it started with what?
Hmm.
A conversation.
A conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
All with a
We that's and that I'm glad you said that, because we think that we gotta shout at everything, we gotta speak in tongues at everything, we gotta. Jesus said, if you say to this mountain,
mm-hmm.
conversation. If we look at his life and look, whether you believe in Jesus or not, if you look at his life, you will see a person who dealt with poverty, who dealt with hunger, who dealt with famine, who dealt with disease, who dealt with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. And the way he dealt with it was he spoke to it. He talked to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He had conversations with them,
Yeah.
opening their mind, opening their hearts to the possibilities of being whole.
Mm-hmm.
That creates a desire to be healed. And then that moves into conviction. And
Yes.
conviction moves into it being intentional about
Yes. 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 All right. So I have taken lots of notes. I'm going to
it.
recap a bit. So again, well, you mentioned talking with the family, but I think number one is your emotional and mental health, right?
Mhm.
Must be
Yeah.
intact. I think
Yeah.
before you
You
even
start
begin
there.
this
Yeah.
conversation with your family members,
Yeah.
your emotional and mental well-being needs to be intact before you
Hmm.
dive in.
Hmm.
Then um talking about it with your family, having those open and honest conversations, right? You mentioned um knowing your enemy, like knowing who
Hmm.
within the family is the enemy and that you cannot have these conversations with because
Hmm.
maybe they're just not ready at that time. They may never
Yeah.
be ready.
Hmm.
But being realistic about that,
Hmm.
right? You mentioned boundaries. We didn't say what those boundaries might be, but just know that you may need to establish some, right?
Boundaries is um so there are personal boundaries where you um where you determine how you want to allow people to be in your life
Mm-hmm.
on your terms,
Mm-hmm.
personal boundaries. The boundaries to your family is you determining what am I supposed to be to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell my mom this all the time. My mom has a gift of generosity, but it's weighing heavy on her because she hasn't figured out how to use that gift. And what I mean by this is she'll see somebody in the family or even myself or one of her children or that may have financial issues or something like that. My mom and her gift would just jump right in and try to save the day and try to help out and try to do this and give that. And then when that is not reciprocated to her, because we have this expectation, if I did something for somebody, they should be able to be there for me. It backfires. So
Yeah.
boundaries is saying, I know I have this gift. I know I have this calling. I know I have this passion to operate in this area, but am I supposed to be this for this person?
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to help this person?
Right.
uh, the man who was begging and Peter came by, he was begging for alms, and Peter said, "Silver and gold I have not, but what I have is yours. In the name of Jesus, be healed." Now Peter probably could have gave him some money, but that probably wouldn't have helped him.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out in our own space, setting that boundary as to, understanding what am I supposed to be to the people in my life.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of merge that with kind of the operate within your means,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot
Okay.
about that part.
All right. Yeah. See, I've been taking notes. Developing healthy habits is another piece that you talked about, and then the
Mhm.
forgiveness piece. And what I also got from the forgiveness piece is that while I think there should be an attempt to reconcile, reconciliation may not always be an option or available because, of course, you can't go against the other person's free will, and that might not be something that they're
Mhm.
interested in at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you got to be
One,
okay with
one, yeah, one of the things you could do is if you were the transgressor,
that.
you reach out to ask for forgiveness. They may not receive it at all,
Hmm.
but it's still on you to take that step to ask for forgiveness. As Jesus said, if you're presenting your gift at the altar and remember, your brother has something against you, go and be reconciled to your brother. Then come back and present your gift. It's on us to go and try to fix the situation, and they may not receive us, but that's fine. As long as you did what you needed to do to fix the situation, to get peace of mind for yourself. That's the major thing about forgiveness. It's
Mm.
for you.
Okay. All right. Anything else that we're missing as it relates to intergenerational trauma,
Um,
or that you'd
get
like to add to?
get help. That's what I want. I want people to understand. Um, if you've identified something in you as a husband, that's you know taking your marriage in the wrong direction. A wife taking the marriage in the wrong direction, how you're raising your sons, how you're raising your children. When you've identified it, don't just push it away.
Mm-hmm.
Really dig deep into that thing, um, and go get help. Like I just I tell people this all the time. It's okay to not be okay. That is okay. But what's not okay is to stay that way. It's to stay not okay. We're not. There are going to be times where we're not okay, but we're not supposed to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I want to encourage families to heal, families to have these conversations, families to come to the table wherever possible, whenever it's possible to do so. And if you can't do it with your family, you yourself as an individual, you need to get help from the trauma that's inside of you, passed on from your parents and their parents, and how you're instilling it into your kids. You got to be the one that breaks it, because being a generational curse breaker for your family does not mean that you have to go deal with your family. That may means I got to deal with me to break this curse so I don't pass it on to my children. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it's all about,
Mm-hmm.
And get in the Word of God. I saw Ozzy say that earlier. Get in the Word of God. Get with someone who can help you understand the Word of God. So I would say that as well.
Okay. Very good. Well, boy, I'm sure there is, we could get into more details as it relates to this, but I think we have
Listen,
done a good job of giving an overview. I don't know how this happens, Alonzo. When you get on here, sometimes we have to have a part 2 and a part 3 because you go in deep.
listen, we can talk about how it shows up in marriages. We can show how emotionally distant. You can talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm. All right. Well,
that's right. The curse stops with you. The curse stops with you. I saw somebody put that.
yes, Janae
Make
did.
it personal. Make it
Mm-hmm.
personal.
Yes,
Make it personal.
make it personal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, any final words, any closing remarks? This has been really, really great. Hopefully, those of you who are tuning in on Facebook and YouTube, and we're on Roku tonight on the Greater Works Network, hopefully you have benefited from this conversation. And you will tell your friends, because we definitely want to keep this conversation and these types of conversations going. And we want to encourage you to get active, to
Yeah.
begin working in this area. And if you aren't comfortable enough to take this on yourself, even just based on the things that we said, seek professional help. Seek the help
Please, please.
of a licensed clinician that has
Yeah.
expertise in this area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alonzo, what you want to say?
No, actually.
Come on, I want to hear from you. What you got? What you got? We wrapping up.
What came to me is many people see anxiety, see depression, and never think about trauma,
Mm,
my experience, what
mm,
I've been through.
mm-hmm,
Um, they just think, I'm worrying about the bills, or I'm worrying about this, I'm worrying about that. But that thing originated somewhere. And we can't stress it enough. Myself and Nicole, we can't stress it enough. Mental health, getting mental health to deal services to deal with any emotional issues. And by emotional meaning how I'm feeling, bitterness, anger, sadness, distress, mental issues, anxiety, depression. Um, um, if you've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, the different mood disorders and different things of that nature, you want to. We're supposed to enjoy this life, and I tell people all the time: if you heal the mind, you'll heal the body, and you'll heal your finances, you'll heal every other area in your life. Um, but it's whether you want it or not, or do something about it. Um, yeah,
mm,
it corrodes the container that it's in. Listen, that's why a lot of people are sick, because they are holding on to things that have happened to them. They're not forgiving people. And you could take all the medicine, you could get all, and I'm just saying this. You can get all the vaccines. I'm not anti-vax. I'm just stating this. You can get all the
watch it
medicine,
now.
take all the
Watch it now.
vitamins.
You getting political over
I have
here.
to make that disclaimer. You can take all the supplements, all you want to, but as long as you're holding on to trauma, you're going to compromise your immune system anyway. Then you wonder why the vaccine not working. You're wondering why the supplements and everything you're taking is not working. I've been taking this. I've been taking my medication, but my blood pressure is still up. That's because you're not dealing with the mental issues in your life, the emotional stuff. So you take all this stuff all you want to, you know.
Okay. Well, folks are chiming in about the things that they've learned tonight. So that is good. I love to hear that.
Honestly, we were taught that asthma has something to do with allergies. But that's not the case. It's not. It has nothing to do with allergies or dust or anything like that. If you think about inflammation in the lungs, inflammation comes from a spiritual perspective or mental. It comes from fear, anxiety. Think about when you fear. And I said this earlier. Cortisol is released into the body. Cortisol goes to the pain areas or the fear area or the stress area, and it doesn't shut off. And so if too much goes to the lungs, you have asthma. You have bronchitis, spasms, breathing issues, respiratory sinus infections. But if you research it, the book that I get a lot of my information from is here it is, A More Excellent Way to Be in Health, Dr. Henry Wright. It gives you the anatomy of the diseases from a spiritual rooted perspective, and there's no allergy or anything rooted in asthma. I was by birth, I had asthma. Still dealing with it now. And so when I was researching why as an adult, because when you think about asthma, you think about children. That is a children's disease, but adults, when it's not that unresolved issue of father son, yeah. I'm gonna stop.
No, you good. Ozzy just said, type it in, Nicole. I was actually writing it down, Ozzy. Thank you very much. A more excellent way.
A more excellent way. Be in health. Dr. Henry W. Wright.
All right, hold on. Dr. Henry W. Wright.
W. Wright, yep. A More Excellent Way. Be in health.
Right.
And his research,
W-R-I-G-H.
W-R-I-G-H-T, yeah. And his research from a biblical perspective is backed up by the medical professionals.
Okay. Interesting. Gosh. Oh, so I wanted to share something in I have been taking this nonviolent communication class, and the other day, it's actually been about 2 weeks ago. We talked about feelings and thoughts. So, and I'm going to be sharing this more and more in some of the conversations that I have publicly, because I really think this is pretty profound. It talks about feelings being internal states and sensations that go on in our bodies. Okay, feelings, internal states, sensations that go on in our bodies. Thoughts are things we tell ourselves in our heads. Thoughts are things that we tell ourselves in our heads. True feelings do not involve another person. If feelings are sensations we experience in our bodies, true feelings do not involve another person. You can have false feelings, which are judgmental thoughts, right? You have those judgmental thoughts, and you start feeling some kind of way, right?
Yeah.
Somebody, rejected you, ignored you, abandoned you.
Yeah.
Right. These are thoughts that you have, that cause you to feel a certain kind of way. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
feelings, we already said, are sensations we experience in our body. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts are the things we tell ourselves in our heads. Now, here's the kicker right here. Most
Mm-hmm.
of us are not conditioned to distinguish between these two internal processes of thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm. That's why I separate whenever I talk about it, because emotional health is different from mental health.
mm-hmm,
And we don't, and people, somebody asked me like why you separate the two,
mm-hmm,
you know, because when you think about it, even though the Bible makes the heart and the mind kind of one and the same, they're still separate.
mm-hmm,
Um, when Thessalonians say, above all, I wish that you be in health, um, be in good health, even as your soul. I think it say, above all, be in good health,
Look it up.
uh,
Look it up,
prosper.
Lonzy.
Even as your soul prospers. So it deals with mind, body, spirit, right?
Uh-huh.
So emotion, like you're saying, emotional health is the things that I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it deals with when I'm sad, the tears comes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, when I'm angry, I feel the body temperature heat up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel flustered. I get headaches. And so that's why it's feeling. That's why it's an emotional response, right? But your emotional response is a byproduct of your mental response. The thoughts you process about what just happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
and then
But
the emotional. Go ahead.
but we put those together. All too
Yeah,
often we merge
yeah,
thoughts and feelings and we do
yeah,
not separate
yeah,
them.
yeah,
And really what we're thinking is not what we're feeling. And
yeah.
what we're feeling is not what we're thinking.
Mm, mm.
So I just want to, I want us to really, that's y'all's homework. Really identify what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and be real clear about that.
Yeah, yeah,
And try not to allow your thoughts to be judgmental, because that does bring on these sensations in your body.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then, once you start feeling this heart palpitation or sweat
Yep.
or, you know, um, heartache, your heart might literally start hurting, as
Hmm.
a result of these thoughts that you have now. you know, you're trying to mitigate that, how whatever that looks like, right?
Hmm.
So, you know, I've heard it said that emotions are how do they say it? I think he said emotions are a good student, but not a good teacher. So anyway, that's all I
Amen.
That's all I got. That's all I got. All right. Ozzy said the root is getting into the feelings and understanding them in thought so that they can be balanced again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
balance, balance,
yeah.
balance, balance. All right. Good deal. Well, again, Alonzo, last words. What you got in closing?
Um, I don't know.
Go see
If
Alonzo.
listen, listen.
How can they
If
find
you
you, Alonzo?
if you're so I specialize in marriages and family counseling, dealing with couples, but also family systems. But also counsel individuals as well. And so we offer telehealth services, virtual services as well. At this point in time, I don't take insurance, but we do work with our clients from a financial perspective. So no matter where you are in the world, especially if you're in the Tallahassee area, um, we're here to serve you. My wife, I serve in my practice with my wife. She's a certified Christian life coach in various areas of life coaching, and so we're here to make sure that we change the perception of mental health um, for everybody, and that's our goal. And we want to see marriages thrive. We believe that if you heal the family, you'll heal the community. A lot of the violence and things in the community will change when the family gets strengthened, when the family gets a real what real strength is. That's what I want to say. What real strength is in our families. If you want any copy of my books, you can find me on Facebook, Elonza Morris III, Instagram, Elonza Morris III, or M3 Marriage and Family Counseling on Instagram and Facebook. Any of my books, any of my courses, M3 University, teaching on these very topics and these subjects, dealing with mental health and things of that nature. I'm here. You can just reach out to me. If you just need to pick my brain, a limit of 15-30 minutes. uh, it's free for that time frame. Just, but if I can help you in any way, I'm here to help. I'm a servant of the Lord, and so I'm here to help.
Thank you, Alonzo. I appreciate that. Y'all, we got to support this brother. He is doing a good work. And are you taking any new clients?
I am taking new clients. I need some more
Okay.
clients.
All right. So we got to eliminate the stigma around mental health. Again, it's Man Up Monday. So the brethren, to the extent that you need someone to talk to,
Yeah.
Alonzo is available for you.
I've been praying for more men. I've definitely been praying for more men. I've had a lot of female clients, but I've been definitely praying for more men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. So refer your family members, your friends, anybody who might be in need of counseling services. And Alonzo, this book, where can they find the book?
So if you want a signed copy, you can get a signed copy directly from me. If you want to just purchase it, it's on Amazon. Yeah, we always open. We always looking for clients. I ain't turn nobody away.
Okay.
You can find it on Amazon.com if you just want to purchase from there. But if you want a signed copy, you can purchase it from me.
Right.
If you're here locally, I can deliver it to you right where you are.
All right.
Yeah.
And once again, that's Conquering Life's Crucial Moments.
Conquering Life's Crucial Moments. Yes.
Right.
A 30-day devotional guide.
All right, very good. Look, I need to get a copy to give away, so we got to do a contest or something for the viewers.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I got to figure out what the contest will be, but I don't know, something. I'll figure it out, and we'll circle back, and somebody can win a copy of the book. Okay.
Okay.
All
Got
right.
it.
Cool. All right. Well, this has been great. I again hope it's been beneficial to you all. If there's some other topics or guests that you would like me to explore for either Man Up Monday or What Women Want Wednesday, by all means, let me know. I'd be happy to explore that. I have thoroughly enjoyed this today, Alonzo. I really have. So we need these types of conversations going on. So thank you. And keep doing the good work. And
I appreciate you.
absolutely, we have to have you come back
Definitely. I thank God for my connection with you.
in. Absolutely. All right. Well, y'all have a good rest of the evening, and we will see you soon.
All right.
Yee.